Hey there, on this premiere episode of Dan's Old Time Mini Shows, I'm going to be unboxing these classic Star Frontiers miniatures that have been sealed for over 40 years. I can't wait to see what's inside here. Yeah, so welcome to the new show. Going to be doing this for a number of weeks. Our Book of War Wargaming show is currently on hiatus for a little bit. So I'm going to be doing some miniature crafting here for at least a couple weeks or so, and then we'll get back to the wargaming at some future point. So if you're watching this premiere episode, thanks for joining in. And it's kind of a new setup here, so if you have any comments about things that look wonky or sound wonky, feel free to tell me in the chat. And I'm hoping the chat's connected, as usual. So I actually have, I really like the classic 1980s game Star Frontiers from the makers of Dungeons & Dragons, if you know what that is. And of course, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of D&D this year, 2024. It's also the 40th anniversary of this set of miniatures right here for the science fiction game. Backwoods, thank you so much for checking in on the chat there. So far, so good. So I really like this game, and if you've been following my blog at Delta's D&D Hotspot, you know that about 10 years ago, I went through a process of duplicating most of the spaceship miniatures for Star Frontiers at the time. So here I am about a decade later. Haven't done this in a while, so we'll see how much I remember or how much I have to recreate on the fly. But here I'm going to be duplicating, because these are fairly rare. They don't make them, haven't made them for a long, long time. So I'm going to be duplicating some of the player character miniatures for Star Frontiers. I'm actually gearing up to run a classic Star Frontiers campaign again in a couple months, I guess. And I kind of wanted to build out my science fiction miniatures for a little bit. So the process you're going to see in the next couple of weeks is I'm going to break into these, see what they look like, see if they're still viable actually. And then make molds for them and cast duplicates so I can have a rather larger number of them. For example, when I made the spaceship miniatures, the problem was you get a box of these and there's like one of each type of ship. But if you're going to play the game, you really need a fleet of all the ships. So I wasn't going to buy like 20 boxes each. And I thought that duplicating them on my own would be a good idea. Now I have a whole fleet of Star Frontier spaceship miniatures, which again you can see on my blog if you go back there. But this is new to me. I haven't had my hands on Star Frontiers player character miniatures ever, so you're going to see that for the first time. I guess I should talk a little bit about the game. I am talking about the Star Frontiers game from the 80s. We're not going to talk about the attempted recreation recently, which was not a good idea. Not a good idea at all. In ways that really... anyway, we're not going to talk about it. We're talking about the classic stuff that we love. So the game... and here's an image of the two box sets, and thanks to Board Game Geek for this image here. So in 1982, they released the role-playing version, which is the box on the left in that image there, which later got called the Alpha Dawn set, with your player characters and exploring planets and working as security forces and things like that. On the right, a year later, you see the box set for the spaceship combat game. It's called Nighthawks. And both these games are very, I want to say, miniatures heavy out of the box. As you can see, they came with a large number of counters for player characters and opponents and robots and aliens and all kinds of vehicles, like very heavy vehicle rolls, as a matter of fact. And same thing for the spaceship game, had a whole bunch of counters. And a rather large, the box sets came with a rather large number of what we would now call battle maps. So these big fold-out maps were pretty intrinsic to the game. And as usual, you can say that miniatures are optional, like we always say for D&D from day one. But at least the initial scenarios for Star Frontiers were relying very heavily on these built-in, you can see there's a map for a spaceship and a map for, kind of a science fiction city there. And I think on the back side, they had maps for every different terrain type, which were going to get used in the initial campaign. So very heavily, counter or battle map or miniature heavy. I think for my characters, for my players now, it wouldn't be quite so interesting to hover over the teeny tiny little counters. So I thought it'd be a good idea to actually have miniatures, at least for the player characters. And we'll see. I'm gonna try that for a little bit, see how my players like it. We're not accustomed to playing with miniatures a lot, so we'll see how that goes, and maybe I'll reorient. Maybe I'll pivot later on. And Backways, thanks so much for putting the link to my old blogs where I was just taking photos of what I was doing 10 years ago with the spaceships. You kind of see the process there. So you're going to see in this, my intent here is in this stream to kind of go through the whole process live, and which is a little risky for me in a couple ways. One of which I might embarrass myself because there's a lot of experimentation. Something will work or it won't work, and you adjust a little bit. So that's going to kind of happen live here. And also, probably in a couple of weeks, I will be casting with. I'll be taking this chunk of metal here and melting it down in my home, and then pouring casting lead-based miniatures out of it. So hopefully, as we were joking on the Wandering DM Sunday show, hopefully I don't need the viewers to call 911 when that happens. But I like the game a lot. I've always been very fond of it. My math brain is a little bit attracted to the fact that it's all a metric decimal-based game. You only play with percentile dice, just with D10s. And it's also a roll low system. So every single skill or attack roll is expressed, I would tell the players, you have a 45% chance to succeed. And you're going to roll a percentile dice. And if you roll under 45, that's success. And mathematically, there's a lot of nice things about a roll under system, frankly. So that's part of the reason I kind of wanted to embrace that. See how that works for my players. I've tried that. I tried that actually in the last year with D&D with a D20, and the players were not comfortable with that at all. But hopefully in a game that's made for it, we can see that. Okay. It's still in the shrink wrap 40 plus years later. Let me just look at what I've done in the past. I'm going to put these to a side a little bit. So, here is one of the spaceship miniatures from the Nighthawks game. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit on this. So this right here is one of my duplicates of the Caesar frigates. And the Caesar are the bad guys in the Star Frontiers campaign world. So this is actually one of their smallest capital ship. I guess they have some fighters, but this is their smallest capital ship. So the original box set just had, I think, one of these. And the Caesar are supposed to come to the table with, at least half a dozen, if not more, of these things. So I duplicated this. The stand is duplicated as well. And the overall process was a little bit more space here. Maybe sometime in the future I'll get the bigger ships out. So as one of our patrons reminded us in the chat on Sunday, there's a company that's been around for decades called the Duncan Company. I think they were based in Texas for a long time. They might have moved at some point. They're still viable nowadays. I'm pretty sure you can find the Duncan Company website. And so they would make these mold sets. I got the molding metal from the Duncan Company, actually. So they make these molding sets for you to duplicate a whole bunch of miniatures for your fantasy or historical games or things like that. So this is one of the pre-made molds that I got from Duncan years and years ago, and this one here has 3 figures that you can mold out of it. You could mold just one at a time if you want to, and I believe this is supposed to be 2 goblins and an ogre. I think everything's in 25 millimeters. So 25 millimeters to eye height on a man-sized figure. 25 millimeters. It's about 1 inch, meant to represent about 6 scale feet. So that is a little bit smaller than miniatures nowadays. Over the decades, as you probably know, there's been size inflation. So the miniatures that you use in role-playing games have inflated from 25 to maybe 28. I think I've seen recently, and I can't remember what set it is, what series it is, like 32 millimeters for player characters in some game that's just coming out now, I think. So, admittedly, if you do put these classic miniatures next to current models, they do look kind of shrimpy. So I haven't used these in quite a while, but the overall idea I really liked. So when I wanted to duplicate, and obviously, with these miniatures, you take this, you put the two molds together, you melt your metal, you pour it in the holes here, and it doesn't take very long. It cools off pretty quickly, actually. And hypothetically, the promise would be that you could just smelt a whole army of miniatures on your own if you wanted to. Never made that many of them, but I like the idea. So when it came time to duplicate the spaceship miniatures, I got some silicone rubber and made my own molds. So this right here is the mold for that Cedar frigate. I think from the I should have picked up the company that makes the rubber. But anyway, so here's my silicone mold for this thing right here, and as you can see, it's in 2 parts, which they wouldn't. I think if you were a brand new to casting, they would probably have you cast something that's really just interesting on one side, and the multi-part mold is actually a little bit more advanced. But I jumped right to that. I probably had more courage than I was justified in having, but made this out of that. Probably not my first attempt. Probably took a couple attempts. Probably had to adjust the mold a little bit 10 years ago, and then I can put it together like this. Put a rubber band around it. Throw the metal in here, and made a number of these. Probably like about a dozen of these, I think. So that's what I'm going to be doing here with the player character miniatures. And I haven't done this in a while, so I'm wondering, there's some complexities I'm sure I haven't thought about. One of the things that made the spaceships easier, as I've been thinking about this in the last week or two, is that they're pretty symmetrical, right? This is the Cedar miniature, and if you looked at the Allied, the United good guy miniatures, even more so, it's kind of cylindrical. So when I was making the 2-part molds, it was really obvious, right, how I was going to lay the miniature in the 2-part mold. And it takes, you do 1 part on one day and you have to come back and make the other half of the mold on another day. So it was really pretty elementary that how I was going to position the miniatures in the mold totally symmetric like that. The Allied miniatures are basically just cylinders, more or less. And with the player character miniatures, I'm sure it's not going to be that simple. So when I committed to doing this, about a week later, I got worried about, oh geez, if the character miniatures are really complicated, I could very easily screw up making the mold really complicated if there's like some limb that's in a weird position that has to go down into one of the mold halves. I've never done that before, so I'm a little bit worried that I might make this challenging to a degree that I might not actually succeed at. So that's kind of my point tonight, is I'm going to unbox the miniatures, kind of scout out what's available, like what miniatures are easier, what are more complicated, and then kind of make a game plan for at least what I'm going to start with making a mold next week. And maybe if you've got some ideas as you see me here, or some things to stay away from, feel free to jump in the chat and point out your opinion. But that's why I wanted to spend this first episode just thinking about what's going to be easier and what's going to be harder on these classic miniatures. Let's see here. The other thing I should point out is that as I was getting ready for this Star Frontiers campaign, is that if you want, as I'm sure you're aware of, If you want fantasy miniatures, well, they're all over the place, right? I mean, you can get all kinds of, medieval soldiers and dragons and monsters and orcs and stuff like that. You got it, D&D makes it. They've made it in different brands for, decades. Warhammer makes it. You can go grab some cheap miniatures, probably in a dollar store, actually, if you want to go that way. But science fiction miniatures are much less available, much less options for that. So, I did go, and for what it's worth, get some dollar store like animals, like zoo animals. I can say these are like creatures. But for science fiction stuff, it's a lot, much slimmer pickings. And actually, we were talking about this on the Wandering DMs Discord server the last day or two. And a couple of people had the very helpful suggestion. There's a brand called Stargrave Miniatures that multiple people were highly recommending. And I checked them out. They look great. But in addition to that, if I'm playing Star Frontiers and you have these, frankly, trademarked specific alien races for your player characters, you've got Yazirians, which are these winged monkey creatures, kind of inspired by Wookiees, frankly, from Star Wars, but, a little different. And you've got Drallocytes, which are these blob creatures, these sentient amoebas, basically. And you've got the Vrusk, which are these sort of like centaur insect aliens, right? Well, they're totally customized, and you're definitely not going to find miniatures for those specific races. So if I wanted a number of those things specific for my player characters, I really don't have any choice. I've got to use branded Star Frontiers miniatures. I think I did see. I think when on my hunt, there was a Kickstarter a while back that clearly someone was making space monkey miniatures, and they were clearly trying to conjure the Star Frontiers Yazirians. But I didn't find anything other than that, so I felt I had to use actual Star Frontiers miniatures. And that's why I'm going through this process here. If I could just go to a store and grab, space monkeys and sentient blobs, I would do in spacesuits with lasers. I would do that, but my search came up short. So here I am. And that's kind of the motivation for why I felt I had to do this. So, right, and so William in the chat a minute ago said, "Here's hoping the original molds the company used were likewise simple, easy." And looking at the box, I think that hope is going to carry through, actually, because there was a moment where I was like, "Oh, geez, this could be." Some of the aliens in Star Frontiers are really weird and complicated. I was like, that I could really run into trouble. And then, just like William said, I was like, later on, I was like, oh, wait a minute. The manufacturer would have that same problem. So hopefully that's going to work in my favor, I hope. Okay. All right. Well, without further ado, let me break in here and we will see. Oh, actually, one other thing, coincidentally, 30 minutes before I started the stream tonight, I'm going to a little show and tell here. I also got this. I got a copy of Peter Perla's classic, The Art of Wargaming. And it's a really nice hardcover book here. I just opened this up in the last hour. And, of course, Peter Perla, one of the founding giants of the wargaming, hobby/industry, did it both for actual modern military science as well as hobby gaming. And Perla, I believe, passed away last year, I think. And as we continue to lose some of the giants of the hobby, unfortunately. So I took the opportunity to get a used copy of The Art of Wargaming, and I'll crack that open in a little bit, and hopefully that will feed into our, continuing wargaming experience with Book of War and all such things as that. Again, focus on naval stuff a lot. And as some of you know, one of my top white whales for Book of War is to have really nice, attractive naval gaming, and I'm still constantly trying to figure out how to make that work and make it good. And William's worked on that as well, I know. So if you go to our if you are a patron to Wandering DMs, go to our Discord server and you'll see some links that William's worked on in the past for going in that same direction for OED gaming. And what a great help William always is for these things that we're interested in. Okay, so here is the first box set, Star Frontiers player characters, and the game itself came out in 1982. No, that's not the first one. This is the first one. No, I got the right one. No, this is the first one. Okay, so it came out in 1982, and the copyright date on this pack is 1983. So this has been sealed in the shrink wrap for 41 years at this point. And I'm going to break this open for the first time. You can see, obviously, on the back, painted versions. You've got what's going to be in here. And you have, it looks like about 2 in this set, 2 of each player character race. So 2 humans, 2 Usurians, 2 Dralocytes, 2 Vrusts. 1, in like casual clothing, and 1 in a spacesuit for each pair, is what it looks like. So Vrusk with weapon and Vrusk in spacesuit, and Dralocyte with weapon and Dralocyte in spacesuit. And then you also have a pair of the Sathars, which are the evil worm attacking horde creatures, which are the evil villains in the Star Frontiers campaign. Again, 1 normal and 1 in spacesuit. I think that's what it is. Kind of the spacesuit coloring is a little bit surprising to me, but that's what they picked there. So good, some good color combinations. As some of you know, I like assembling miniatures. If it's multi-part stuff, I like molding and casting process is like really intriguing to me. The painting of the miniatures is a huge pain in the ass to me, frankly. And historically, there's dust on this. And historically, that's one of the things that prevents me from really building out my miniature set, is the painting is a real hassle. I've frankly conscripted our friend Max into painting some of my miniatures currently. And he's a big help for that. But I will queue up. So my idea here is I am going to try to unbox this, pick it, mold it, cast it, and also paint it in some number of weeks' time. So I have gotten new, I just ordered new paints and new brushes, and hopefully maybe with better equipment that it'll be a slightly less painful process, I'm hoping. Normally, I'm really punkish, frankly. So historically, I use like just whatever I have around, and like some, model car paints and, brushes that I borrow from my girlfriend Isabelle and things like that. Now, ironically, the funny thing in our household is that, as some of you know, my partner Isabelle Garbani has a Master of Fine Arts in sculpting. And a Master of Fine Arts is a terminal degree. It's like a PhD for art. So she has a terminal degree in sculpting and has worked for years as a fine artist. And she hates mold making. So she's had to sculpt and she's had to make molds and cast and stuff for her degree and her work. And she likes the sculpting, she likes the creating, and just hates mold making with a white-hot passion, and then really kind of likes painting miniatures. So we totally have this complementary, like, she's like, I can't believe that you actually want to make molds because I hate it to death. And I'm like, well, I can't believe that you actually like painting stuff because it's a huge pain in the ass. But so if I get in trouble with the painting, I might possibly consult with her, or frankly, if I get in trouble with the more complicated mold making, I might consult with her because she has a lot of knowledge, even though she doesn't like it a lot. So possibly off stream or possibly in stream, I might, if I get in real trouble, I might have to call her in at some point. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to open up the player character miniatures from 1983, 41 years ago, one year after the original game was constructed. So I tend to be, kind of religious about these things. So I'm going to really carefully open the shrink wrap, try to maintain the box. Of course, when I was a kid, I would like destroy these boxes left and right because I'd leave them around on the floor and then I'd walk on them later on and I'd feel bad. But as much as I can, I'm going to try to be careful about these things. The other thing that's a question mark here is, have the miniatures even survived? Because with these lead-based miniatures at the time, and partly with the way they were packed, there's an issue of what's called lead rot. Is the lead could, I believe, start to oxidize, and then the miniature itself starts to break apart. Now, to date, with the spaceship miniatures, I have personally had very good luck. But supposedly some other people, depending on how it was packed or packaged, have opened these things up and basically had dust left over 30 or 40 years later. So one question is, are these even good enough, in good enough shape for me to use or make a mold out of or things like that? And it's possible that they might actually have kind of disintegrated. I'm hoping not. But that's part of what we're going to discover here tonight. Oh, shrink wrap from the 80s. Okay. Open up you. Okay, great. So, okay, business reply mail. What is this? It seems like, okay, so, little note from TSR in your box. Go read that first. So, of course, you know what? Some of our younger players might not even know what TSR was, right? So TSR was the original maker of Dungeons and Dragons and Star Frontiers and related game, the Western game Boot Hill, and the post-apocalyptic game Gamma World that we love so much. And of course, initially TSR stood for Tactical Studies Rules. And then, like a lot of companies later on, it came to not mean anything. Yeah, 40-year-old, you know, should I... Just smelling the foam, I think. From 1983, it seems like only yesterday there were just a few of us playing games and painting miniatures. That's all changed now, and millions of people enjoy TSR's brand of adventure and fun. But we'd still like to be able to talk to you and share our excitement with you. Please take a few minutes to fill out this survey and let us know what you think about our hobby. E. Gary Gygax, President, and Duke Stiefried, Executive Vice President of TSR Hobbies Incorporated. Hey, Adam the DM. Thanks for joining us. So, I don't know, should I fill out this survey? And send it back to, obviously, this address that doesn't work anymore. Oh, no postage necessary if mailed in the United States. Good thinking, guys. You know, I think that they went like about 10 years before the idea of market research occurred to them. I think that, you know, reading the works of our friend John Peterson and stuff, that was just kind of outside their arc until about this era, frankly. So, let me see, your sex, your age. Who bought these figures? I bought them. B, my mother. C, my father. D, my spouse. E, other relative or friend. And for whom were they purchased? A, for myself. B, my son. C, my daughter. D, my spouse. E, my other relative friend. What prompted the purchase? Where were these figures purchased? Obviously, eBay isn't an option here, so unfortunately. How many other metal miniature figures do you own? Interesting. A, how many other metal figures do you own? A, none. B, 1 to 4. C, 5 to 10. D, 11 to 20. E, 21 to 50. F, 51 to 100. And G, over 100. You know, so clearly at this point I own more than 100 miniatures, but a lot of them are plastics. So I don't know if I have 100 metal miniatures. I don't know, do you count the ones that I cast myself? Do those count? Yes, I guess. I don't know. I might have upwards of 100. William says, put you down for G, over 100. Good for you. Good for you. Awesome. I'm you know, the other thing I'll point out is that they are using the 1, 2, 5, 10 preferred numbers on this numerical survey. So the categories basically end at 5 and 10 and 20 and 50 and 100, which mathematically I like very much. Good choice, guys. Excellent. Easy to scale up logarithmically without complicated numbers. What brands are they? Okay, what brands are they? If you're asking in the 80s. Okay, well, A, TSR, obviously. B, Grenadier. C, Heritage. D, Steve Jackson. E, Ral Partha. F, Citadel. G, Miniature Figurines. Is that a brand? I don't think I've heard of that before. H, Superior. J, Martian Metals. K, GHQ. And L, Other. Interesting. I think I've heard of like the first 6 there, but I don't think I've heard of miniature figurines, Superior, or Martian Metals. Fascinating. What's your favorite activity using these figures? Acting as DM, acting as player. Conducting large-scale miniature battles. I will admit that I would pick that one. D, collecting. E, painting. Definitely not that for me. I respect if you feel different, or F, other. How else do you use these figures? How long have you been playing role-playing games? And how long have you been playing role-playing games? And the highest number is over 5 years. Can we write in 50? Is that allowed? Can I? Over 5 years is the highest number on the survey. Oh, good. Yes. Yes, Mana Burn. Yeah, people usually refer to that as minifigs. That I've heard of. Great. See, isn't it funny how company names shift over time like that? There's so many companies that like had a name and then it was like an abbreviation, like an acronym, and then at some point they declare that the acronym doesn't stand for anything, right? I think like IBM is like that now, and KFC is like that now. Stuff like that. It always weirds me out. Like, why do these letters exist then? Well, I mean, I think so. The survey here is just about any metal figures, right? So clearly, I'm very sure that TSR was the only company that made branded Star Frontier stuff. But at this point, they're just asking, who is your metal collecting money going to? Yes, 3M. Minnesota Mining and Minerals? Is that what 3M was? Manufacturing and Minerals? Minnesota Manufacturing and Minerals? Something like that. Mining and Manufacturing? Something like that. When did you purchase or receive your first metal figures? And again, the highest number is over 5 years ago. I didn't think that this was going to be so entertaining. Do you use TSR miniatures or other advanced D&D miniatures for games not made by TSR? Do you use official AD&D miniatures for some other game, you heretic? That's an interesting question. In your opinion, what is important for high-quality metal miniature figures? Right, and they have like a reduced Likert scale here with 3 levels. So less important, somewhat important, extremely important. Precise, tiny detail. Color of metal. Uniform scale. Heavy weight. You know, I do like the heavy weight. I do like the weight of metal miniatures. Feel like when you're moving it around on the board, feels like you're really doing something. That is for me, it's an advantage that metal has over plastic. Originally Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company, right? Changed to just 3M. Yes, thank you for that. I knew I was close. Historical authenticity, if it applies. Now that's not going to apply here tonight for us with the amoeba alien Dralocytes and company. Recognizable character class. That's interesting. Variety of poses, realistic physical proportions, accessory weapons, vehicles, etc. And then it says, how do you rate these figures? How do you rate these figures? Same bunch of questions there. How much does this set of figures cost? Oh God. Now, okay, before I read this, here's a Dan thesis for you. Inflationary currency makes us all look insane when we're old. There's no hope for it, right? We have fiat currency. It's not based on a gold standard. I get it. I understand why, but it's inflationary currency makes everything look absurdly expensive from when it got baked into our heads when we were 13, right? And there's no escape. When we're old, we all look like we're insane because we're like, that costs 100 times what I'm used to, right? So here, how much did this set of figures cost? A, under $6, B, $6 to $8, C, $8 to $10, D, $10 to $13, and E is $13 or more for a box of 12 metal figures. And I think I actually took quite a while shopping, searching for these on eBay, and I think I found one really cheap for $25, and I think the other box I might have gotten for maybe $40, I think. And I will say, they made boxes of robots right? And those, you know, again, like 12 robots, same size, everything. Those frequently go for over $100 now. I think I sell them for like $100, $125. So that I would have to check off over 13. Yeah, I agree. Yes, Mana Burn. The Feel of Metal minis is nice. Yeah. It's interesting. That's a good point. You know, I guess whereas I play mostly with plastic miniatures, I will confess, and I guess you don't see it on the Book of War show. Is I'm really very disrespectful to my plastic minis. I have a big box, and when I get done with Book of War, I just throw it all in one big box. And and sometimes things snap off, and I just reglue them some point, things like that. So with my metal miniatures, I am a lot more careful storing them and playing with them and stuff like that. Partly for the paint shipping issues and stuff like that. Yeah, one good metal figure will be $13 now. See, everything's like 10 times. You know, you could go to an inflation calculator and maybe that's reasonable, but still, it just feels weird. Considering the quality and value, is this price A, far too expensive? B, expensive but worth it? C, not expensive? D, a bargain? Would you like to own these TSR products? Mapping paper. So no interest, would like to own or already own. Would you like to own these TSR products? Mapping paper, character record sheets, and then specifically for AD&D, paints, adhesives, brushes, scenic terrain. I didn't know they made that for AD&D, actually. Miniatures based on modules. Oh. Now, remember, this is the era of like Dragonlance, right? So you're rolling out specific, recognizable, named characters kind of for the first time. At this point, would you like to own metal miniature figures of these periods? These historical periods: medieval, U.S. Civil War, Napoleonic, World War II, contemporary. I don't think TSR ever did that. I don't think. There's a lot of companies that still do that now, which is great. AD&D characters, AD&D monsters, or finally, Star Frontiers characters, which is what we you have it. I don't need that because now I have that. What type of scenics would you most like TSR to produce? Scenics fit together to create AD&D scapes or mythical planets for adventuring. What type of scenics would you like? And there's a giant list here. Dwarf Mountain, Halfling Hollow, Orc Hold, Ruins of Raghar. Not Ragnar, just in case our patrons watching. Ruins of Ranghar, Tavern at Tree, The Windsept, Fountain of Youth, Loch Lomond, the lake, Misty Mountain, The Dragon's Den. So I guess a whole bunch of, it seems like play sets or dioramas, it sounds like. Shiphaven Landing, The Elven Woodlands, The Green Grotto, The Castle of Catheria, Demon Deeps, Keep of the Ancient King, The Graveyard of Ghouls. Weird. Boy, these are really specific. Now, for Star Frontiers scenics, and I don't think they ever made these either, they're suggesting things like the Venetian Swamp, the Mercurian Sunscape, the Saturnalia Methana. Who was brainstorming this? The Ganymede... Okay, that's a typo. That's supposed to be Ganymede Station. The Dralocite Domain. The Artifacts of the Ancients. The Martian Desert. The Uranian Pinnacles. Just fill in your own joke on that, okay? The Plutonian Seascape. The Yazirian Habitat. The Asteroid Mining Center. The Jupiterian Panorama. The Neptunian Seascape, which is different from the Plutonian Seascape, I'll have you know. The Sadar Stronghold and the Vrusk Weapons Manufacturing is your last option. Would you like a Vrusk Weapons Manufacturing plate set? Why didn't you fill out this survey at the time? We could have had that. Awesome. I'm really sure they never did any of that, but those are interesting ideas. Oh my. Okay, so let's look at the actual miniatures, shall we? Okay. Oh, they're all jumbled up. They fell down over the last 40 years. Oh, are the little separating things all sad? Oh, I weirdly feel bad. I wonder how many of those have never been said by anyone. That's a great point, Adam and DM. As you know, we all frequently have these times of like, I need to say some fantasy or D&D name on a stream for the first time, and as it comes out of my mouth, I go, "Oh no! I've known this word for 40 plus years, and I never thought about how to pronounce it out loud." Well, yeah, possibly those names have never been pronounced by anybody. That's a great point. The Jupiterian panorama. That was not marketested. Okay. So these should have been all in separate little containers there. Is that one thing? What is this? Why are there two things? Oh, okay. So one single one of these is 2 parts. I get it. Maybe 2 of them are 2 parts. I see. Okay. So let's look at. Let me kind of zoom in here. So I'm going to start with the humans. Okay. So this here is. So this is a human woman with a laser gun, right? And of course, Star Frontiers. I guess a lot of people refer to it as a space opera, right? So it's definitely inspired by pulp sci-fi literature, like D&D is from the 30s and so forth. So Asimov's Foundation and all kinds of stuff like that, and Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon are kind of in the overall idiom of Star Frontiers, and you're space hopping, and obviously 1982. This is when Star Wars first blew up, so they're kind of trying to piggyback on that that flush of interest at the time. So that looks pretty good there. Adam the DM said, okay, now we have an issue with this in our household particularly, right? Said coup de grace horribly wrong for about a decade. And of course, I am fortunate enough, I live with a native French speaker. And, now I know that generally, as a general approximation, in French, it's just the last letter that's silent. So grace would be pronounced grâce, coup de grace. But, the third edition, and you can see, like an English dictionary will say that, and a French dictionary, they'll both say the same thing if you read the pronunciation. But the D&D third edition Player's Handbook specifically had a glossary where they wrote down an incorrect pronunciation, right? They said to pronounce that coup de grace, right, with a silent C, and that was incorrect. But the entire generation of third edition D&D players were all taught from the book to pronounce that incorrectly. And I had a lot of debates with people at the time, and probably still do. But if you look at an English dictionary, and it does say coup de grace. So hopefully we've all fixed that 20 years after third edition. Let's see, where's the other human? Okay, so here is the human with a heavy something or other, with some kind of heavy weapon. Could be an automatic cannon, right? So Star Frontiers has actual firearms, so this might be an automatic rifle. They also have these weapons that are called. And okay, now it's having complained about people mispronouncing things. I'm about to do it. Because Star Frontiers has these weapons that are handheld rocket shooters, right? So a little rocket comes out of the gun, and it's spelled GYROJET, right? So now we get to debate whether that's supposed to be gyrojet or gyrojet. So I guess it's like a gyroscope, if that's the idea, would be gyrojet. I have personally, I guess I've always pronounced it gyrojet because it just sounds better to me. How do you guys pronounce that? Was it with a soft G, gyrojet, or a hard G, gyrojet? Yeah, the barrel, right, the barrel is twisted. Let's see if I can. You're right. Okay. You know what? Okay, now I'm uncomfortable. So my instinct is to try to straighten this out, and I don't know if that's even safe for me to do quickly on stream. Actually, is that okay for me to do? Like the Greek sandwich? Okay, but I don't know how to pronounce that either. Oh, hero, right? Hero jet. Okay, I'm gonna try. If this doesn't work, I'll just fix it somehow someday. Can I? Now it is soft metal, so usually this works, but this is really, really thin and it's really, really bent. So just be really slow with it. It's bent fully 180 degrees around. Eh? Not perfectly straight. I'll probably straighten it out better later. So that's another advantage of metal miniatures. If you need to adjust them, right? You can do that with. I have tried to adjust plastic miniatures a little bit, but that's a whole process. I have to like get boiling water. I have to put them in the boiling water. I have to try to manipulate them quickly while they're warm. They still tend to spring back into their original shape. There we go. That's pretty good, right? It's not bad. So that's probably, okay, so now that we've straightened it out, I guess that looks like a laser rifle. Based on the end there. Cool. Cool. Oh, and you know what? And, so with Star Frontiers, right, you can power your energy weapons. You either have like a clip that has like, I think 20 points of energy, or you can strap it onto a backpack that has 100 points of energy. So they have the little backpack here with a cable running into the laser rifle. That's neat. I like that. Cool. Cool. Okay, so there's your human. Ah, this is great. Okay, so gyroscope. So John Proudfoot saying gyro as in gyroscope. So are you saying that gyrojet is a real gun? Hero jet? I mean, I don't know. Am I saying hero right? I guess that itself, having not grown up in a city with a lot of Greeks in it, I've always been a little bit unsure how to pronounce the sandwich too. Really, that's Jason. Jason and Jesper Annabern. If that's a real gun, that blows my mind. I've gone fully 42 years thinking that was completely made up. I've never. Gyro is the Greek sandwich. Wacky. No way. No way. Where's my browser? No way. Holy smoke. Oh, my mouse is being cranky. So gyrojet is a family of unique firearms developed in the 1960s. Okay, well that explains things. Named for the method of gyroscopically stabilizing their projectiles. Rather than inert bullets, gyrojets... See, now you got me saying that. Fire small rockets called microjets, which have little recoil and do not require a heavy barrel or chamber to resist the pressure of combustion gases. Velocity on the tube is low, but increased from the rocket, obviously. The result is very lightweight and transportable weapon. Long out of production, today they are a coveted collector's item with prices ranging over $1,000. They are rarely fired. Ammunition, when available at all, can cost over $200 per round. Holy smoke. I had no idea that was real. Huh. Oh man, I'm so glad you guys told me that. Crazy. Wow. Boy, I love having you guys with me when I do this stuff. That's amazing. canonically, Space Marine bolters, otherwise known as bolt throwers, are gyrojet rifles. Huh. I did not know that. Wow. Amazing. Okay, so I got now. So those are the humans here, I guess. So I got 3 good guy alien races. What do you want to see next? You want to see the monkey Azerians or the insect Brusk, or do you want to see the amoeba Dralocytes? Pick whatever you guys like. Monkey, good choice. Let's go ape. Okay, so is it the other set that has? Yeah, this is supposed to be one normal and one spacesuit, right? So here's. Okay, so here is the first Azerian. One of his. He's holding, I guess, 2 pistols at once. One of them's a little bent. Fix this guy's pistol. It's funny, the accoutrement and the weapons are a little bit more old school on the miniatures than like the art in the book. Tends to be a little bit more Buck Rogers-y here. So pretty neat. Okay, so there's your space monkey, double wielding, I guess, lasers there. And as you can see, right, the Azerians in Star Frontiers, right, they have these webbed formations on their arms, and the campaign backstory is that their home planet was a giant low-gravity forest world. You know, kind of like Endor a little bit. Not gonna mention that. And so they could you know, flying monkey from tree to tree in their original home habitat. So the rules of Star Frontiers are that they can glide, and there's a little table of like, what's the gravity on this world, and here's how many meters they can glide per 10 meters of height or something like that. So the Azerians are always going to have these wing formations, which is kind of interesting. That could be tough to mold, I feel, because they're really thin. It's kind of like this big, expansive, really thin material. So obviously my instinct would be, if I'm going to mold this, I'd put the 2 parts of the mold like this and hope for the best. That's probably the best I could do, I'm assuming. I guess at least this is really obvious how I would make the 2-part mold like this. But I guess I'd be concerned about whether I get high fidelity on the wings or not. Jeez, and there's also all this open space. See, that's not something that I dealt with the spaceship miniatures, is the holes in the thing. I'm trying to think, would that even... That's got to be possible, right? So the 2 parts, it just flows between them. See, I've never done that before. That's going to be a new thing for me. I guess even the legs on the human bases, actually. I guess that'll be fine. Does that? I mean, just look at the Duncan. Right. Yeah. Okay. So right. So like here's the hole in the between the legs of the pre-made mold there. So that works. Okay. It's like a lot of holes on this guy. They got repurposed as Hadosian Spelljammer, right? So in the Spelljammer rules at some point, the 3rd edition era Spelljammer set, they took all the alien races from Star Frontiers and rebranded them for some weird reason. I never understood why didn't you use the normal name for them? Weird. So good question, Adam. So Adam, the DM, is asking, when did you start making your own miniatures? Just about 10 years ago. And frankly, it was a fairly brief cycle. It was just like maybe for a year that I was doing it. And William kindly put a link to my blog because I was taking photos and just blogging about it at the time. And so over the course of about a year, I duplicated the Star Frontiers spaceship miniatures. And then actually, this is going to be the first time I've ever cast my own... custom player character miniatures. I've never made molds for player character miniatures, so So about now, for the character minis, approximately you're experiencing it. But about 10 years ago, I did make some spaceships. Okay, so there's that. Where's the other Yazirian? Is that a Yazirian? Is that a human? I guess that's another human. Do I have... Oh. Oh, are there more humans? Jeez, I can't even tell. Oh, there's another guy. Oh. Okay, so here's two human miniatures. I get it. Right. So we saw... Okay. Good. Okay, you know what? I like this. I'm good with this. Okay, so we saw, right, human guy with laser rifle and human woman with laser pistol. Great. Okay, and then what I didn't notice previously is you've got human guy in spacesuit with... What are you holding? Some kind of... No, it looks like a... Just look at one. Oh, it's bent, right? Is it? What are you holding? Okay, okay, I see. That's the end of it right there. Got it. Okay, there's also, I guess, a little bit of flash, you call that? All right, I don't have my tools to take the flash off right this second. I'll get them later. So that is some kind of weapon. That seems like that would be like an automatic rifle or one of these gyrojet rifles. But anyway, so male in spacesuit with weapon. Now, one thing I will say that you're going to see me when I make molds for these things, in places you've got to make these little escape hatches for the air in the mold. Because you might have the mold, right, like this, and you pour metal down into it, and it's going to be pushing the air down, and you don't want a little air bubble that prevents part of the miniature from being cast. So in places, you've got to put a little whispery, thin escape hatch, not all the way through the mold, but just like a little bit into it, so it'll push the air down into that. And then there might be a little bit of metal that gets into that causes that kind of thing. And sometimes, like, I make a mold, try the first cast, and then I have that problem, and then I go in and cut a little escape hatch for my second attempt, is where that comes, at least for me. So anyway, so male in spacesuit, and then you also have a human woman in a spacesuit. Great. So I'm going to read that. Very, very retro spacesuit designs, I think. What? Now, you don't look like... You're the first person that doesn't look like you're holding a gun. I'm trying to see. So it might be holding like a... That might be like in their left hand. That might be like a detection device or something like that. So the characters in Star Frontiers, right, they have... toolkits, like if you're an environmentalist or a medic, you have a toolkit that's very important that you got to keep track of. The other thing I'm going to keep an eye on is, like, grenades are really important in this game. So I'm assuming somebody's going to be carrying a grenade or something like that. I don't think they've got one here. Cool. Anyway, here's your spacesuit version. I'm sorry, Lore Pseudo. No, this is not an old video game. I apologize. I know, and Lore Pseudo is very, very flattering about the stream. Dan plays game from the Elder Times. Hopefully we'll get back to that at some point. Admittedly, that's not what we're doing now. This doesn't have a base to it. Did the base fall off? That's interesting. No base. Kind of like the doors. Does that scare you? There's a deep cut. I don't know if anybody got that. Okay, so, right, so I'm looking for the Yazirian. There ought to be a Yazirian in a... Must must be this, right? Okay, so here is Yazirian in spacesuit. It's not entirely obvious. Okay, but anyway, you clearly have the winged element, right? So got the breathing apparatus, got a helmet kind of hiding the monkey face. And once again, all the ends of the guns are all bent. Careful. Very careful. Very careful. Hey, Knickknack95, thanks for joining us. So I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't know how long I'm going to do this, frankly. So at the moment, I'm planning on doing this weekly for a little bit. And at least tonight, I just want to open up these 2 boxes. So I'm about halfway through the first box. It's about an hour. Like if I'm doing this for another hour, I wouldn't be too surprised. That's nice. That helmet is really weird. See, to begin with, that looked like an insect face to me. So I guess it sort of has like a Tusken Raider feel, I guess, right? It's got a breathing apparatus there. Maybe that's what they were trying to conjure up. But clearly with the wing element there, that's clearly a Yazirian. Cool. Star Frontier Star Yazirians, they also have an ability called Battle Rage. That I think, again, is sort of trying to be like, it's sort of like a Wookiee going crazy, sort of, a little bit. So you're in a fight, and you have a chance to go, berserker crazy, and then you get a melee bonus. It doesn't help with guns, but it helps in melee. Yeah, a gas mask rebreather. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess there must be some piece of equipment in Star Frontiers like that. Okay, so I got 2 more good guy aliens, right? I got the insectoid Vrusk, and I got the blob Dralicites. They're both kind of interesting. What would you guys want to see next? I think I can make a mold out of that, right? So I would expect to make the mold, the 2-part mold, like along this axis. Makes sense, I think. It's the guy's a little twisted, so I'm like, eh. Right, so there's your pore. Your pore hole's going to be like that, I think, and then the 2 sides will be like that. Anyway, so you want to see the okay, it's unanimous. You want to see the blobby Dralicites. Okay, so there ought to be one, right, in casual Dralicite clothing, casual amoeba clothing, and there ought to be one in amoeboid spacesuit. So which is which here? All right, so this must be the normal guy. Okay, so there's Dralicite number 1. Looks like a shmoo, right? Now, once again, he's got a thing that's bent. What the hell is that? That's not a gun. What is he? I'm not even sure that's bent. Is that... What the hell is that? Is he holding a bomb? What is he holding in his left hand? I can't even tell. I have no idea what that is. What is that? He's beautiful. Great one, John Proudfoot. Anyway, so there's your Dralicite. Let's get that out of the way. Right, he's apparently not wearing really any clothes, but he has a gear belt. What is in his left hand, right? So that's what you got. That's just he's got a couple tools here. Are those maybe there's a grenade there maybe? You know what? That is really what a Dralicite ought to be like, right? Just like his parent blob birth. I cannot figure out what's in his left hand. I almost want to say it's like a piece of fruit or something. But I feel like it ought to be some kind of science fiction something. Check the box image. That's a good point. Of course, I have to be careful because it's on the back side. That is really not any help. I mean, so the wiki thing is supposed to go up. I don't know. Is it like a sensor? Maybe it's like some kind of sensory thing? Weird. So the Drellatites in Star Frontiers, right? They can't. It like takes a minute. I think they can't immediately reform themselves. But what they can do is they at their option they can reform their limbs, right? And so based on your dexterity stat, I think whatever your dexterity is, again it's percentile, so possibly 1 to 100, right? Like divide that by 10. That's how many limbs you can have. So on average, you'd have dexterity 5, and you'd have up to 5 limbs. And you can see that this guy currently, he's got 2 arms, and he also has 3 legs. Right, and if he wanted to, he could reform, and he could take one of his legs and sprout it up top and have 3 arms if he wanted, or any other combination. What on the front? I don't think there is a Drellsite on the front of this box. I feel like that. I want to call it some kind of sensor. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm gonna, so just at the moment I'm gonna declare this guy's a scientist, and he's got one of his environmental detectors there. Like, is it poison? Is it good? Can you breathe this? Of course, we all know that Drellasites are famous for their philosophers and their stand-up comics. That actually is canon. If you haven't played Star Frontiers, that's literally actually canon. The Drellasites have really the best philosophers and also the best stand-up comics. And, you know, actually, probably if you're a comic, you probably realize they're not that far removed. Anyway, okay, so there's the first Drellasite, and then there ought to be one in a spacesuit. Get focused. There you go. So good little coverall-y spacesuit. That's cool. And he's got like the same thing in his left hand. God damn it. What are you guys holding? It's a little bent again. I mean, is that a grenade? That feels very grenadey to me. Have a weird top to it, but it's like a drink pouch or something. Weird. So I like that suit. So he's got his head kind of sticking up further to get a look at stuff. Now this guy, back to it. This guy only has 4 limbs. So this guy has apparently low dexterity. He only has a dexterity of about 40. I think. This dude here has dexterity of 50, which would be, you know, average. Hopefully this guy has like good logic or reasoning or something like that. Looks like it's supposed to be some kind of weapon. Let me look at the power of your imagination. See if I can get my browser up here. Geez, even that website picture isn't really helping me. They both seem to be on that. So on this link that Bakwe has just shared, these things are painted, and there's a caption that says they both seem to be pointing their pistols for shooting birds. Well, okay, I get it. So I think there is a piece of art. Now that you mentioned, there is a piece of art in the book that. Geez, I don't have my book available. I should have had the Star Frontiers book, right? Whereby, since the Drellasite don't really have fingers, right? They have little mittens. That their weapons have these bulbs, right? It's like the weapons are like basting bulbs. That's a good point. So actually, they'd be holding. I guess if they were holding it ready, right? This could actually be like a laser pistol for a Drellasite. A little bulb end they can squeeze and hold. You're currently holding it vertically like that. Or they're just enjoying a nice pipe. You know, I kind of want that to be the case now. I kind of want my cool, chill Dralicites to be smoking while everybody else is going crazy. In some cases, literally apeshit. Yeah, I guess that's what that is, right? That's a Dralicite formed gun with kind of a bulby bottom to it. That's exactly what that is. I guess the top I could fix a little bit better. Cool. I like the dude in his spacesuit. Okay, so when I mold this, again, see, that's pretty obvious. That looks pretty obvious to me how the two-part mold would be made. You do it like this. Right? When you actually cast it, it'd be sitting like this. I think that's doable. I think I feel like the blobby Dralicite might be the easiest mold to make, right? I mean, and if I misshape it, like, you know, are you gonna know really? And then probably humans so far next, and the Yazirians, the ones I'm worried about so far. Yeah, this is probably about 15 millimeters high, right? So if here's your human that's advertised as 25 millimeters. So yeah, these guys are definitely smaller. This is good. You have a marching order like this, right? That's great. That's tactically useful. William, thanks for checking in. All right, so I got one more good guy miniature here, the Insectoid Vrusk. And looking in the box here, this is the only miniature in this box that's two parts, which is a little bit surprising, but you know, not too. But now that I see it, I guess that makes sense. So here is. I'm going to find the two parts. So this must be... Okay, so here is... Right, and again, they're kind of these centaur insect types. So here is the body of the, I guess, the casual Vrusk miniature. Interesting little gap in the bottom there. I guess saving metal in a place where you're not normally going to be seeing it. So this was the piece that I was the most worried about casting because of these little spindly insect legs. I'm like, that's going to be tough. And good question, Laura. So yeah, the whole reason why I'm doing this is I am prepping for a classic Star Frontiers campaign. I actually wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't planning on actually using these. And again, you know, science fiction miniatures are hard enough to come by, and specifically Dralicite Vrusk Yazirian miniatures. I mean, I don't have any other options, so I had to queue up to this for the first time. Yeah, that's going to be tricky. And now I got to find the front piece that's not in a spacesuit. Okay, well, I guess that's easy to call. Okay, and here is the head. So get kind of, I guess, what the segmented thorax there. Right, and there's the Vrusk head. Classic little mandible-y kind of things there. Got a laser weapon in his left hand. Again, kind of like the Dralicite, right? It doesn't look like a human because they've got like about three symmetric fingers. That has to, so they need like a bulby thing kind of on the end. So the torso would, little peg there, would get pegged in. Should probably look at the actual miniature like so. And there's your Vrusk. So probably the miniature manufacturers were possibly unhappy about the big Centauri figures as the one thing in the set that they had to make in two pieces. So obviously, if I'm going to do this, I would have to make two separate molds for this, right? One for the already very complicated back part. I'm really worried about that. I don't know. I mean, obviously the manufacturer did that, so I guess I'd make the two molds like this, like along the main part of the body, and just hope that the up and down thing works. I guess that seems like that, and then I'd have a separate little mold just for the headpiece. My memory. So Lord Suda is asking, do I actually like the Star Frontiers rules? I think so. I'm hoping my memory hasn't gotten hazy. I think I got the itch to play it again because it's all decimal, it's all percentiles, it's roll low. Frankly, a little part of it is I just got hankering for a roll low system, which mathematically has a lot of efficiencies to it. So I could be wrong, but I think I do like the system. There must be more. Great question. Hi, Dan. Has anyone asked why you chose Star Frontiers over Classic Traveler? Well, okay, that I will confess. I'm probably just a TSR zombie. That's what I got into at the time. I've never played Traveler. I don't know. Should I confess that live? Yeah, I've actually never played Classic Traveler or any version. But I did play Star Frontiers. Really got in the spaceship rules. I did like it. Somebody clip that. Please don't publicize that. I'm gonna get canceled. I mean, Traveler's a great game. I have absolutely nothing against it. I love the complicated character creation rules. I mean, that's another thing. Is I'm pretty sure I can make a Star Frontiers character in about 5 minutes flat. And I'll get to do that with my players for the first time in a month or two. I think I do like it. I mean, do you remember a particular rule about Star Frontiers in particular that's wonky? He chose the playable one. I think it's okay. I mean, admittedly, I did look at the the combat modifier table. If you're in a fight and the DM screen has the modifiers, I'm like, ooh, that's a little complicated, a little bit. But I think, it's going to be for me. It's me for the DM, and I'm like the ref. I'm like, I think anyway. So there's your casual Vrusk. That's good, and then there ought to be a spacesuit Vrusk. Okay, so here's back end. Yeek. Are those okay? So the legs here are like actually connected, if I'm not wrong. Are those actually molded connected, or they just got squished together? I guess they just got squished together. Eek. But if I mold that and the legs get squished together, like, okay, that's fine. Are those? Yeah, those are all actually separate. I guess these are right. So these are covered in little spacesuity ringlets. Boy, Lord Suda. So Lord Suda is reminding us that when Star Frontiers, the initial set was just for terrestrial character-to-character play, and they didn't have any spaceship rules until a year later, when Doug Niles, who is TSR's 80s war game master extraordinaire, right? Doug Niles made the Nighthawks spaceship miniatures rules, and he also made battle system for D&D. And I cannot sympathize more, right? At that time, the year of waiting for the spaceship rules is one of the most eagerly anticipated events of my life, right? There was the couple of things in my life have been waiting between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi for that to get resolved. Frankly, much later, I was really thrilled to get the same sense. For me, between Marvel, Infinity War, and Endgame, right? I was actually very happy to get the same same taste of anticipation that I did with the Star Wars films. And third, the wait between the character rules and the spaceship rules for Star Frontiers, right? And I remember finally getting the spaceship rules in 1983, I'm pretty sure. And, normally I'd be careful and just ripping off the shrink wrap in the car home, right? And I couldn't wait 2 minutes. I'd waited so long for it. So that right there might be part of the reason that I'm so into Star Frontiers is frankly the wait time for the spaceships kind of bent my brain a little bit. And so there's part of my brain that's like, must play Star Frontiers. Well, we see original edition Delta V. You know what? Doug Niles did such a good job. You know, with Chainmail and Swords and Spells. Swords and Spells, you know, being the official D&D war game, were clearly had deficiencies. With Nighthawks, I've never felt that there's clearly a deficiency. Like, it fundamentally played okay. And I more or less didn't feel like I had to fix a bunch of stuff. So probably not a sci-fi version of Original Edition Delta. However, you know, unfortunately our late friend of the show, BJ, and at one point, you know, this channel very well could have been 3 people. It could have been me and Paul and our friend BJ. BJ was actually working on a sci-fi version of OED. And we were kind of cycling a little bit, unfortunately, before he passed. But that could have been a thing, but it wasn't going to be made by me. Oh, you should see I should show the art. I don't know, can I? I should show the art because the guy was a genius. Anyway, so here is here's the front part of the spacesuited Vrusk. That is a nicely detailed helmet. I like that little cable element a lot. Nicely protected. That's kind of scary. That is kind of scary looking. I kind of like the idea of possibly like encountering this guy for the first time and then taking off the helmet, and it's like it's even more insecty. it's even weirder under the helmet. It's like, oh, you're actually an insect. So that would go like this. Nice. Your space-suited Vrusk. Nice. Well, the thing about Nighthawks, you know, it was clearly very knit into the campaign world, right? It was obviously very Star Frontiers. The thing you can't get away from is it's a miniatures game, and sometimes we've talked about this in the Wandering DM show. You know, whether, you know, and Dave Arneson was very passionate about, you know, Napoleonic naval games, right? And so you get these naval rules built into original D&D. But there's no two ways of slicing it that when you're playing a naval type war game, you've got a whole bunch of your characters on one ship, and which is a very different scale. And if the ship goes down, you TPK. Your entire character party is gone, right? Possibly based on one single torpedo shot or something like that. So certainly it's an awkward fit. It's an awkward fit to actually run the spaceship game in your, you know, with your pre-existing Star Frontier player characters, because the risk levels is just TPK on one single roll. Yeah, and totally different mechanics. Sure, has nothing to do with the man-to-man action. But you know, very totally tied into the campaign world. You know, expands the skill sets, has rules for your player characters getting skills in spaceship, you know, elements. I'm the pilot, and I'm the gunner, and I'm the navigator. All this kind of stuff. But you know, different scale, and it's a little bit of an awkward fit. And I run into the same thing myself with you know, OED with D&D gaming. I would love to have naval gaming, but the very first thing is who decides where the ship goes. That's just one thing, you know, which is very different than a party of characters in a dungeon where at least theoretically everybody can choose where to send their character, right? And with it, if I put them on a sailing ship, I sort of feel compelled to have one person be the captain now and make that decision. What do the other people do? It's an awkward fit. And that's just an element of the scaling issue. And yeah, you know, the Star Frontiers, the first box set is, you know, 1-to-1 man-to-man scale, and the second box set is spaceship on spaceship scale, and they're very different. Okay, now there is. I just realized. Okay, so this means that And I should have realized this because it is on the box, so it must be right. Remember I said this piece doesn't have any base? Okay, here's the base. So spacesuit, some of you probably realize it. Spacesuit, big thing on the back. Well, the big thing on the back is a jetpack. And there's a second piece for the base, which is a rocket exhaust, right, launching this character into the air. Aha. I love it when like two mysteries cancel each other out. Because I was like, this guy has no base. And this thing, I don't have no idea what this is. Well, this is the rocket exhaust. Which, oh, that's lovely. That's great. That's great. Fantastic. And so this is probably that when I was like, what are they holding? That's probably the control to the rocket pack. Now I don't think that rocket packs are actually a piece of equipment in Star Frontiers, but the modeler got inspired, so that's cool. So again, I'd have to make two separate molds if I'm going to do that. It's probably not the first thing I'm going to do. Also, it's kind of pretty idiosyncratic. I don't know how many my players need a miniature that's specifically a jetpack, which doesn't exist, taking off right now, but a beautiful piece. Don't say that. I have read a couple of the fan magazine Star Frontiersman, and if I recall correctly, in the past, I actually have been in contact with the editor, and I think I actually sent him a gift of some of my custom spaceship miniatures, actually, because I did actually even sculpt my own fighters, because the original Star Frontier spaceships didn't have fighters. So I actually sculpted some of my own, sent him some, and he sent me a like an official Star Frontiers patch back, which was pretty awesome. That's cool. Okay, now there's one other thing in this box here, and that of course is the bad guy miniatures, right? And now again, SATHAR is the name of the evil alien worm creatures. I've always said Sathar. I don't know, I'm sure there's going to be some people out in the world that say Sathar probably, or some other iteration. I say Sathar. I hope that's customary. I hope. So here is. Geez, and they're big. They're big miniatures, too. So here's Sathar number 1, basically naked. Right, again, with a slightly bent gun. Carefully. There's a very thin barrel on that. Okay, so probably a laser rifle there. Okay, that's as much as I'm going to try to fix that here on stream. So one of these segmented worm creatures, and it's funny because in the rule book, right, you've got, here's our 5 races. And for the humans and the Drowsites and the Azerians and the Rusk, you have like opposed, like, hello, I'm a Drowsite, or hello, I'm a human male, right? Possibly naked. And then for the Sathar illustration, they've got one that has been autopsied, right? And it's actually cut open. like a medical experiment, and with its guts showing in the illustration. And at least at that point, the campaign, the backstory was that no Sathar has ever been captured alive. Right? We've had fights, but so in my head, I always have this like autopsied Sathar in the rulebook. But here's one that's not dead yet. Yeah, they're really big, right? So here's the human. It's really big. I also agree. Like, I always assumed that they were just human size, but wow, they tower over the human. Never mind the Drowsite. Now that's like twice as scary that they're not just snakes, they're giant snakes. It's like That's like space dragon level. That's like intelligent, cunning, technological space dragon level. That's suddenly twice as scary. Yeah, it's a cool. I like that for your bad guy alien. I think that was a good design myself. You dirty snake. Yeah, I think it's a really compelling villain alien, and you know, obviously D&D uses spiders a lot, right? And you have the Drow campaign, you have the spider goddess. Snaky wormy things are kind of pretty creepy right off the bat of it, and then if you make them this like high tech, never been captured, you know, crazed warlike horde. And then, okay, so a little bit of a spoiler here, right? On top of that, you know, so part of the initial backstory, the campaign, not world, but galaxy, I guess, is that for some reason, like crazed humans and Drowsites and Vruscan Yazirian saboteurs will pop up and sabotage industry or mechanics or travel or transportation, things like that, for the Seiðar. Why would they do that? Why on earth would anybody, you know, were they getting bought off? Why would you do that for a homicidal race of snakes? No spoilers. Okay. Well, I won't spoil it. Why would anyone do that? But there's these regular, you know, normal person saboteurs that pop up. Why are they serving the Seiðar? It makes no sense. Well, they have powers they have powers beyond what you even see. They're even scarier than that. Okay, and then there's one other piece here, and that is the Seiðar in a spacesuit. That's crazy. Snaky tail kind of wrapped around. Big helmet there. Again, I guess it looks like it's dual wielding. So clearly got a laser pistol in one hand. Is that's too close? I'm trying to tell if it's got a grenade in the other hand or something like that. That's creepy. Nice. A really good dental. They have single payer health care. Do it for the sweet Seiðar candy. You know, I've never had Turkish delight. I think I was reading something recently that somebody had it. It was disappointing. I don't know. That's nice. I think I think that the one outside the spacesuit is slightly creepier to me. But this looks like this does kind of look like high-tech dinosaur. Which it's interesting. I never really thought about that before these miniatures. Actually, having the miniatures in hand gives me a totally different taste, a totally different feel for what these aliens are like, actually. Because I'm not entirely sure there's even any piece of art that has the two of them in the same picture, actually. Because they say they're always just like, at least in the one-to-one game, they're always just like hidden, surprise, sabotage, we don't know what's going on, mystery. So I'm not even entirely sure there is a piece of art with both of them in it. So there's your Yazirian. And there's your Drowsite. And even the Vrusk, which is pretty big. I don't think he's going to sit there by himself. Do that. Right, even the Vrusk, which is pretty big, still is dwarfed by that Seiðar. Imagine a whole fleet of those coming at you. Creepy. Nice. Can have a good Indiana Jones moment. Why does it always have to be snakes in space that are giants and geniuses and come in waves of tens of thousands with lasers? That's not a good day. That's not a good day at all. Yeah, right. The autopsy drawing kind of makes them feel small. I agree with that. I had no idea they were this this huge I mean, it has numbers, right? Do the numbers in the book? I do have a digital copy of the book here. I'm just going to pull up on my end. Because that never, it seems like that never occurred to me. Down. Okay, so the book says, well, you know what? You do actually, right, you actually do get internal shots of all the races and the illustrations, but only the Sadar is like pulled and pegged and has tags on it. So the Dralisite is average size, 1.3 meters tall. Okay, 1.3 meters of Dralisite. Human, 1.9 meters. Yazirian, 2.1 meters. You know, I always think of them being smaller because in the rules they actually have a strength penalty. They have a, for what it's worth, the monkey Yazirians, what is it? They have a strength penalty. They have a dexterity bonus and an intelligence bonus. Is that intuition or is it intelligence? Whatever the int stands for. No, intuition. All right, they have a logic bonus, a dexterity bonus, but a strength penalty. So I always think the Yazirians as being smaller, but they're actually taller. So 2.1 meters. The Vruskar says 1.5 meters tall. And in the Sadar, it says 3.5 meters long. So I guess that checks out. I guess I hadn't thought about them being raised up like that, but I guess that does check out. They're approximately twice as long as a person is tall. Why is my mouse being cranky? Yeah, I guess, close enough. Yep. I guess that checks out. Scary. Yeah, I mean, that's, honestly, I actually kind of like, that's another reason I kind of like Star Frontiers is like the metric system. Again, and as you probably know, I like using unconventional scaling in my games. So if I'm playing in a fantasy game like D&D, I really actually want to dig into feet and yards and leagues and fathoms and, weighing things in stones. I think conjure's part of the campaign world. And if I'm playing a science fiction game, I absolutely want it in metric. So I totally want it in meters, and the weights are in kilograms and all this kind of stuff. And I was actually doing a little bit of research for my upcoming campaign. And specifically for the outdoor action, I guess they don't use it anymore. But when the metric system was initially invented, there was a unit called the myriameter, which stood for 10,000 meters, which is obviously 10 kilometers. And it didn't make it into the official SI system, but I'm planning on actually using the myriameter for standard outdoor scaling, right? Like most of us find that 6 miles is a pretty good spacing for outdoor stuff in D&D. And so 6 miles would be about 12 kilometers if I'm doing that in my head okay. So make it 10 kilometers, and which they actually had a name for, which is a myriameter, which nobody knows about. But I'm going to start using that in the game, and I'm assuming my players are going to be like, Dan made some kind of new unit that we've never heard of, but that actually used to be a thing. Apparently, there's actually stone markers around parts of Europe with roadways measured in myriameters. But yes, anyway, so like Lord Sudu was saying in the chat, it makes sense that the Yazirians are tall, but they're light because they do have lightweight bones, so they can glide. That's actually a really good point. Yeah, I guess like with D&D, I always like see lower strength is smaller and higher strength is bigger, and I need to get out of that habit. Yeah. Okay, so maybe I think my plan was to open up 2 of these boxes, but I'm intrigued enough that I'm spending so much time that maybe I'll just open up the one. So if I want to, and this is a nice set that you have men and women for the humans, and I don't even remember what the gender issues are with the other races, right? So the Dralicites are hermaphroditic, so they go through male, female, and neutral stages from time to time. For one single Dralicite, obviously we know how humans work. The Yazirians are like humans. Heterosexual viviparous. No, I'd have to look up. Okay, so just like humans. The Vrusk are heterosexual ovoviv. I don't know how to pronounce that. Ovoviviparous. I'm gonna have to look that up. So they have male and female Vrusk, I guess. But I will confess I can't tell the difference, so I'm okay using one miniature for both. And then probably the Sathar say we don't know yet. Hermaphroditic, unknown is what it says for their reproduction. So I think that works pretty well. For, yeah, do Sathar have genders? Don't know. Probably like how worms work. Maybe. Anyway, it's a mystery. I was told no spoilers, so I cannot tell you about the Sathar genders. I'll have to find out in a game. I demand to play a good Sathar in your campaign. Probably not going to happen. Probably not going to happen. I should have expected that. Yeah. Anyway, you can't. I mean, no one's even met a live one. No one's even had a chat to date with a living Sathar and lived to tell about it. So, not at the moment. So if I'm gonna mold stuff, okay. So what would be the easiest? So for human, so what do I do for the player characters in my upcoming Star Frontiers campaign, right? So for aliens and monsters and beasts, I think I can just grab zoo animals or whatever. That's fine. I can just grab toys. I'd be happy to reskin stuff, right? So if the book shows an alien monster like this, and I just grab some miniature and say that's what it looks like now, my players won't know the difference. I'm fine with that. But for the player characters, I kind of want to be a little bit high fidelity. They're in all the illustrations. I kind of want them to feel what these, aliens are like. So for the humans, you can probably grab some other human whatever, possibly a sci-fi miniature. And the things that are important, I don't need that Sathar I'm not too worried about. They're generally not on screen anyway. So the things that I'm worried about are the special races of Yazirians, Dralicites, and Vrusk. So I'm not worried about that. So I feel like for me to get back into mold making, probably the easiest thing is going to be the Dralicite, right? So I can make a little mold out of this. Even if I screw it up, nobody's going to know the difference because he's a blobby amoeba anyway. I might, 40 years on, I've never had anyone say I want to play a Sathar, and now I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet. I do think. Yeah. But, so I can probably make a little, I think the Dralicite is a great thing to start with, as I get back into mold making. So it's small. If I screw up the mold, I won't be wasting much, silicone. If I screw up the casting, I won't be wasting much metal. Of course, the other thing that's really nice about casting your own miniatures out of metal is that if you screw up, just melt the metal down, right? So I've literally never wasted any metal. If there's any, the flashing that I cut off, I just put it back in the bin. If I screw up a miniature, I just throw it back in the bin and just melt it down again. So it's perfectly efficient, which is good for me. So I think I might start next week trying to remember how to make mold for the Dralosite, probably. And I'm also going to, and probably I'm going to start with not spacesuits, right? That seems like a rather unusual situation to be in. They didn't even have, again, as some of you said, they didn't even have spacesuit rules until a year later with the spaceship game, Nighthawks. So this set that I'm playing with to begin with doesn't even have spacesuits, I don't think, if I recall correctly. So I'm gonna be probably using these 3 miniatures to begin with for the player characters. So I'll probably start with the Dralosite. And then, even though I'm worried about it, obviously the Yazirian's just one piece. It seems like, I don't know. I mean, how many monkey? I mean, I guess I have, like, I don't know, ape miniatures with D&D. I mean, I guess I could grab, I guess just as a stopgap, I could grab like some dire apes from D&D and just say that's your Yazirian for now. Maybe that's on the back burner. And so even though the Vrusk is two-part mold is 2 molds, two-part molds for a grand total of 4 parts. Maybe after the Dralosite, maybe I should emphasize the Vrusk. Maybe, because that's so unique. What are you thinking of in D? What is it there in D&D that has like a centaur type insect creature? It's what is it? It's nobody wants to play a Vrusk anyways. Oh please, that's not true. That I can guarantee. Someone's definitely going to play a Vrusk. I think Formian, yeah, Formian, right? It's not a Thrycreen, right? Thrycreens in D&D, they're humanoids, right? They walk on 2 legs. But the Formians are centaur ant dudes. So, I mean, I don't have any Formian miniatures. That's not the kind of thing I would get because they're so unconventional. But I suppose if somebody had Formian minis around or something like that, they could use that. But I don't have that. So I feel like I should probably prioritize getting some Vrusk miniatures on the board. But boy, those legs, that's going to be a whole different ballgame. Now, looking ahead, I will grab, maybe I'm going to open the other box on a different night. But if I look at the other box, and I've got this zoomed way in. If I can get the light looking properly. Okay, so I noticed on the other box, which came out in 84, that the Vrusk miniatures here look like the legs are all molded in like one glob with an actual solid base, which is different from this. Right, this doesn't have any base under the legs. So there's that. I don't know now if that's going to be 1 piece or probably 2 pieces again, probably. Same thing here, right? Looks like it's just like 1 unit with the legs. So maybe next week I'll make a mold. I'll start making a mold for the Dralosite. I think is a good first step. And then maybe I'll think about unboxing this set here and seeing if these Vrusk miniatures might be easier for me to cast. Maybe. That looks promising to me, actually. But if those are still separate, then I might focus on the Vrusk miniatures to begin with. I don't know. So probably clearly Yazirian will be easier, I think. But I probably have a more motivation to actually get Vrusk on the table. So I don't know. If I was doing this purely by difficulty, I'd go Dralosite, Yazirian, then Vrusk, obviously. Maybe I shouldn't bite off more than I can chew. Maybe I should do that. I don't know if you guys have opinions about what you want to see first. It was clearly Dralosite first, right? I don't know if you have an opinion about whether you think I ought to make mold for the Yazirian first or the Vrusk first. I guess right this second I'm talking myself into Yazirian just because I'm not entirely sure my mold making abilities haven't rusted away. Now, now one thing I'll point out, the miniatures haven't rusted away, right? Because there is a concern sometimes about lead rot on these old miniature sets. So these all look great, right? I don't see any spots of lead rot. I don't see any spots of any kind of blemishes or something like that. So these all look totally pristine. 41 years later. I think that looks great. Oh, I'm noticing here on the user a little extra hair around the hands and the legs. Hands and feet. That's great. Yeah, if I have a one piece, if I have a single chunk of rust in the other set, maybe I'll do that. Maybe next week I'll try to make a mold for the Dralsite, break open the other box, see if the rust there might be better. I think that's a good plan. Okay, so at least the miniatures exist. Step one, you have them. And then obviously the humans are neat too. I really like I got to admit, I really am fond of the woman miniature. It looks super cool. But that I'll probably hold off on because it's not quite as necessary for my upcoming campaign. But it looked great. Whoops! I just knocked my camera. Yeah, Knick-Knack, could try green stuff molding them first before committing to metal molding. Well, the metal molding for me is actually easier. I'm not entirely sure how I would make them out of green stuff. Or sorry, don't be anti-Frusk. Don't be anti-Frusk. Isn't there an illustration? There's an illustration in the book, I think, of like a bar that says no Dralosites allowed or something like that. I think, unless I'm forgetting about the D&D art that says no dwarves allowed. I don't know. Maybe I'm mixing that up in my head. The funny thing is, I have an old supply of the green stuff, and if you're talking about the same thing, you've got a bar of yellow material and a bar of blue material. You kind of knead it together, it turns green, and then it hardens at some point after that. And I've done a couple things with that in the past. Like that, for example, that's how I initially sculpted my Star Frontiers fighters myself. And some number of weeks ago, I'm digging through my stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what the name of this is anymore. I don't know what the name of the green stuff is anymore. And like if I run out of my current supply, I don't know how to get any more because I don't know the name of it. And then I was going through some old photos, and like at the top of the show, I have a little teaser trailer with some old photos of when I was doing this before. And fortunately, one of the photos had the canister with the name still on it, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness. That's the name, like Need Right or something like that. Like Need Right green stuff or something like that is at least what I was using at the time. So I was like, oh, thank God. I just happened to accidentally have it in a photo, and then I could look it up, and I can find it online. They still make it and stuff like that, so I can get more of the Need Right green stuff when I need it. So I have that, but for me it was actually more challenging. I guess I'm not a sculptor, so it was more challenging to work with the green stuff than to actually just make a mold and cast metal. For me, but again, I'm not normal. It's a good product. I got to admit, when you do need some sculpting material like that, the green stuff's a really good product. And I like. I guess I'll probably talk more about it, next week when I start pouring the silicone for the mold the first time. So I'll probably take the Dralosite, make one half of the mold. So I gotta support half of it, and then I'll cast, one half of the silicone rubber that has to sit for at least a day. So then I'll come back the next week and pour the other half. But the product that makes this, I also like quite a bit. It's like called Umu 30, I think, that I'm using, which again is kind of a beginner silicone rubber. It's easier to use in a lot of ways. They have more professional stuff that I considered for this stream. I considered taking a step up to more advanced mold making, and I was making an argument about it to my partner Isabelle, and she made a little bit of fun. She's like, "Oh, you want to use the big boy silicone?" And I'm like, I guess I kind of do, but then I decided against it because there's some complications to it that would be. I'd need more equipment, frankly. I'd need specialized equipment, like at least 2 pieces of specialized equipment that I wouldn't use for anything else. So I'm probably going to stick with this. It worked really well for me. It's slightly longer shelf life once you open it up. So I'm going to be using the exact same stuff next week when I start doing this. And hopefully I remember how to make a mold. And hopefully it doesn't leak out all over my desk when I do that. And that's what I'll be doing next week. So I think that's good for tonight. So I think I'm going to leave that for tonight. And I think I'm happy to have broken open the initial player character box set, including so things we learned tonight. The Seidar are much bigger, much bigger than I thought for 40 years just looking at the paper book. So that's frightening. And also, gyro jets are real weapons, which I had no idea. Gyro jets or hero jets or however you want to say them. So I should probably look up. I mean, that can't possibly be in a dictionary, can it? Just look up and see what the Webster's New World Dictionary. That obviously doesn't have every word ever used in English, but it would be interesting if that was in here. Got gyro compass. Okay, gyroscope, gyro compass, gyro horizon, gyro magnetic, gyro pilot, gyro plane, gyroscope. So every other gyro thing in here starts with a J sound. So I guess that argues for gyrojet. Weird. That seems like a weird name. There's too many J sounds in gyrojet. That's why I've always said gyrojet, but maybe it should be gyrojet. We'll look that up. It's our standard. We always learn how to pronounce a new thing. On every Wandering DM stream we ever have, there's always like, well, here's a word I've never said out loud before. So great. You hope that SSI did a Star Frontiers video game, Pool of Alternus. That would be nifty. You know, they did make Endless Quest, right? That was their Choose Your Own Adventure brand. They did make at least one Endless Quest Star Frontiers book. Whatever it was. I think I've read it in the past, I think. It's not bad. Actually, not bad. So they had some other properties. I don't think they made Star Frontiers video games, but that would be delightful if they had. Fascinating. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap up for tonight. So I think that's pretty good getting into our first box set and thinking about my plan for duplicating some of these miniatures for my upcoming Star Frontiers game. So at least for a while, I'm going to plan to do this every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you want to join me next Thursday, as I actually try to recover my mold making skills for the first time, that would be great. Again, if you're new to the channel here, we're part of the Wandering DMs channel, and we have every Sunday for the past couple of years, Sunday 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we have a D&D chat show with me and my co-host Paul, and of course we have guests. Most of the time we're talking about old school D&D, sometimes how it relates to new school D&D, sometimes, horror games. We've talked about Star Frontiers in the past, science fiction games, a whole bunch of other kind of role-playing stuff. Sometimes we have guests. Sometimes we make dungeons on the fly, live on stream in an hour. So if you're new, we hope you'll join us Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the live chat there with Paul. This Sunday, as some of you may know, this Saturday is February 10th, right? Is the Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year. And we, coincidentally, in this 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons, we are entering the Year of the Dragon. So this Sunday, we're going to be talking about the Year of the Dragon. And we've talked about dragons in D&D before, but we're going to recap different ways you can use them, things that we frankly learned in our D&D games the last couple of years since the last time we talked about it. Of course, that's also the big. There's some sort of other big game happening this Sunday, I think. But feel free to. We would love to have you check us out 1 p.m. Eastern Time for our Year of the Dragon chat as we enter that, and then you can follow some other game later if you want to. I guess if you're into that, would be great. And if you'd like to join all of our friends on our Discord server, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/wanderingdms, and we even have a $1 tier. They'll get you in our Discord server. And all 24/7, we're always talking about role-playing games and new fantasy games and calls out for new online games for players and horror games. And we have a miniatures channel that we've been chatting in the last week or so, getting ready for this. And boy, some of our patrons are just marvelous miniature painters, creators, modelers, and they absolutely put me to shame. So if you want some tips about your miniature creations or swapping, sharing tips. I just got a great tip, frankly, today about painting because it causes me so much trouble. Please join our patrons and get on our Discord server. We would love to see you there. And that's the kind of stuff we've got happening on our channel. And obviously I'll be back here next Thursday. So thanks so much for hanging out, and thanks for exploring the classic sci-fi Star Frontiers here stuff. Plenty of next Thursday, and I guess I'll sign off for now. Thanks so much, and I'll see you later on the channel. Take care, everybody.